The Haunting of Bly Manor is now available for streaming on Netflix, and while this has the word haunting in the title, it is not a sequel to The Haunting of Hill House. This is more of a spiritual sequel, as it were, as has been described online. This is a show that I was waiting for. If you guys have been following my channel, The Haunting of Hill House was my favorite show of 2018. So naturally, when I heard that there was another one of these coming out, and with Mike Flanagan once again, I was prepared to see it the moment it dropped, and that's exactly what I did. When Danny, a new au pair played by Victoria Pedretti, arrives at Bly Manor to take care of the two children over there, Miles and Flora, who have just lost their parents and the previous au pair that used to be there, she realizes this could be an interesting job for her. She had some experience with kids in the past. However, things seem to be a little strange. The people that are there who are currently working, they seem to have their own demons that they're dealing with, and the two kids in particular seem to have a lot of secrets and acting really strangely. Sometimes they'll act like normal kids, and sometimes they'll say and do things which make absolutely no sense, but are very creepy in nature and very defiant, and that seems to not be gelling very well with everybody who's over there. And of course, horrific stuff starts to happen, and now we have our new series. When it comes to horror at the moment, Mike Flanagan is the name that I keep my eye on at all times. When he says new project, I'm there, day one. Once again, I think he's done an amazing job. I think ever since he's started working with this genre, the stuff that he's pulled off is amazing. Last year's Doctor Sleep was one of my favorite movies of 2020, and it's a film that I've gone back to multiple times, and I've seen the director's cut, and I think that is the superior version of that movie. This show, however, is quite spectacular. It is not as good as The Haunting of Hill House. We'll talk more about that later. But I was very, very pleased with the final product. And a lot of that goes to the writing on display and the way Flanagan once again brings forward this idea of the horror elements not always being the supernatural stuff that you see. Once again, it speaks more to the human emotions that we have, how decisions that we make based on how we're thinking or what we're thinking at the time, how those can impact us and how they can make us do things that we can regret later on. Yes, there is a supernatural element to it, of course, as is the case with Haunting of Hill House, Doctor Sleep, and all the other stuff that he's made. But in this case, it takes on the form of a love story, which I'm not going to go too much into because I don't want to give away too many spoilers in case you're still watching it, although I know a lot of reviews have been out over the last few days. But that essentially speaks to how certain decisions have been made by the two people involved who are in love, and how those have created this cascading sequence of events where things have gotten worse and worse for the other people who are living in the manor. And when Danny walks into this, she's walked into basically a whole mess of danger. That makes things extremely hard, like when she enters, because you're essentially her just watching all of this unfold, having no idea how to respond to any of it. And that brings out some amazing performances from everybody in the cast. Victoria Pedretti is fantastic. Once again, after Hill House, I'm going to say this, if she doesn't get an Emmy nomination, just throw it away. She's a phenomenal actress, and she's done an amazing job over here, once again playing this character to such a brilliant degree. But another great performance was Tanaya Miller as Hannah Gross, who is kind of the caretaker of the manor. She is fantastic in this. Another hopeful Emmy nomination in the works over there. Her performance is very affecting, and it makes up a very big emotional core of the entire show. She has a lot of stuff that comes up later on, which again I don't want to spoil, but it leads to a very impactful arc, and towards its final moments it really hits you. But another thing I have to give credit to is that Flanagan is really good at getting excellent child performances. He's done this many a times, and with this he continues that trend. If you've ever directed anything, getting a great child performance is extremely tough to do if you've worked with child actors before. But here, much like his other works, with Doctor Sleep, he did a great job with Kylie Curran. With the younger versions of the characters in Hill House, he was fantastic over there as well. And over here, with Miles and Flora, these two children, he does a brilliant job again, and he is able to get these very authentic performances out of them, and in a lot of ways they carry a lot of the show because so much revolves around their behavior and what they're saying and doing that they essentially become the main actors of the entire show, and they do a brilliant job of it. And I have to give props to that. That is a very hard thing, especially in horror, for a director to accomplish, and I think it was masterfully done here. The cinematography of this entire season is wonderful as well. This is a gorgeous looking thing, much like Hill House was. The score by the Newton brothers is phenomenal, very affecting once again. Everything that you expect out of a really good horror show here, and what you loved about Hill House, is present in this season of, well, Bly Manor, or the limited series for that matter. I am just amazed by what this team has been doing, and if there's going to be another haunting story down the line, which I'm sure there will be, I can't wait to see where they go with that next. One thing I think people will have some complaints with, however, is the use of horror in this in terms of scares. Because for a long time, this isn't scary. It takes a while to get really, really under your nerves, and I feel like on second viewing, that might not be the case. Once you get to the concluding parts of this entire series and you will look back on it, certain things click a lot more, and there's a good chance you're watching other scenes in future rewatches and they hit a lot more, and you might get more of a fright out of them. And that's perfectly possible. It could happen. But it took a while for this season to get into the really more uneasy stuff. And that happens towards the ending wonderfully, and I think that is brilliantly accomplished. But it does take a while to get going to that point. Hill House pretty much right out the gate sort of gets you into it. Like once episode 1 ends and you find out that Nell is dead and Steve finally sees a ghost, it's like, oh my god. This one takes a while to get to a moment like that. In fact, it takes about half the season to get there. So there is some patience over here, but if you're a fan of slow build horror, that's not going to be a problem for you. That being said, I do think that it wasn't as well paced as Hill House was. This one definitely meandered at times. There are some really great moments in the slower build that's there, particularly episode 4, which I loved, as well as episode 5. Those two are probably my favorite episodes of the entire season, as well as episode 8. These are the more character-based episodes. But aside from that, I actually had virtually no issue with Bly Manor. In fact, I feel like on second viewing, it might become even better. And there's a good chance that this will end up in one of my favorite horror shows. It's already one of my favorite horror shows. I mean, it's so well crafted, it is so well executed, that the tiniest of flaws that it does have seem pretty minuscule in comparison. I highly recommend checking it out, especially if you're a horror fan. It's excellent Halloween viewing. Again, it's not so much about the supernatural stuff. It's not about the stuff that creeps out of you from nowhere or you can see lurking in the background. Sometimes the scariest stuff is the stuff that's just in our lives. It's the basic human emotions and how they can overrun us. And once again, Flanagan does a wonderful job, I reiterate this, by bringing that to the forefront, wonderfully exploring that, and creating an emotionally devastating season out of it. By the end of it, in fact, to the final scene, I was riveted by the finale. I loved where it went. I love how the story comes together. And carry some tissues, just have some on hand when you're watching it. You never know, you might need them. I'm going to give The Haunting of Bly Manor an A-. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Look forward to more reviews very soon. If you haven't seen my Haunting of Hill House review, please check that out. That's also on my channel. You guys are the best, and if you like this, please do subscribe. And I'll see you guys at, well, movies, TV shows, and more.